Hello, everybody, and welcome to the top 5 new comics for January 23rd and 24th of 2024. I'm, as always, Chris. What do you say we jump right into these books? We're going to start with G.O.D.S. number 4. This is written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Valerio Schiti. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. It's a tough one. So, G.O.D.S. is an interesting book. I'm really enjoying it. Like the first issue was, to me, I think like the term mind blowing is overused quite a bit, especially in the world of entertainment. Where like everybody's like, "Oh, it's mind blowing! I can't believe it," but it's as close to the reality of that as I've experienced in a while, especially in comics. Like it was this really crazy book where Hickman was setting up these really deep ideas that, if I'm honest, at times in this series just make me feel dumb because he's obviously building something here. And I have done a pretty decent job over enjoying Hickman books of like putting together what he's doing and trying to figure out. And this one, it's not that it's scattered. It's so well planned and meticulously done. It's one of my favorite Hickman books in a long time. I think this I'm honestly, I read some his X-Men stuff, was on board for it, was kind of happy when he fell off it because I wasn't digging as much as most Hickman stuff, although I thought there was good things there. And this one is kind of back to these crazy Hickman ideas that he gets into. So it's a tough one to talk about. I don't know if I fully grasp it. I feel more than most Hickman, this is the most Hickman-y Hickman book I think I've ever read, because there is a lot that, as the story progresses, I start to make sense of it and I go back to previous issues to like, oh, that's this. And it's making more sense because I originally thought this was a mini series, like a 4-issue mini series. This is issue 4. I know they're solicited out to like 6 or 7 right now. So Marvel seems to be happy with it. I think it's a really good book, but it's a Hickman fan book. Like, I don't know if this is going to be the one that converts you to Hickman. If it does, God bless. But it is a deep read for a comic, and that's good. That's good every so often. I enjoy that kind of stuff. But yeah, God's number 4. Like I said, tough to talk about, but I really enjoy it, and it would be disingenuous to say that it's not one of my top books this week. After that, I've got Punisher number 3. This is written by David Pepose with art by Dave Wachter. So we had Pepose on the podcast when this was before this was launched in the early stages, and we were talking about another book he had coming out from Mad Cave. And we brought this one up and talked about it quite a bit. And he really sold me on it to say that it's John Wick. It's Punisher John Wick. It's really David trying to write a John Wick story. And yes, it's not Frank Castle. Yes, it's this new guy. But I really like his motivations. I actually kind of like him a little bit more than Frank right now, because while Frank was... Punisher to me has always been an action movie, and Punisher is almost like a one-trick pony where you can do good thing. Any writer can do a good thing with them. Like a good creative team can take the worst concept and make it good. But, and that's not to say that Punisher is a bad concept. Everybody calm down. But what I'm saying is it's tough for me to get into a Punisher book because I feel like we just do the same thing over and over again. And that's why I jokingly say some of my favorite Punisher stories are stuff like Frankencastle, because we just went weird with it. Because why not? And I do enjoy that stuff, but this has been good because it delivers on the promise. It really is a John Wick comic, and this guy is like a special forces SHIELD agent who's gone rogue and is just decided that the proper way to do things is no longer the right way. And then you add in the Punisher origin. You know, his spoilers for issue 1, but his family dies. He doesn't know what happens, and it kind of sets him over the edge. It's just such a good, fun read. If you want something that's very action oriented, and unlike the previous book, is kind of just this action flick that you can almost turn your mind off a little bit to. It's well written. The art is phenomenal, and it's just it's a fun, good read with some very, I don't even want to call them B-list villains. They're like D and E-list villains throughout it. So I'm really enjoying this run, and that's not something I say often about a Punisher book. So after that, we've got Star Wars Thrawn-Alliances #1. This is written by Timothy Zahn and Jody Houser, with art by Pat Olliffe and Andrea DeVito. So, anyone that's been watching this channel forever, huge Star Wars fan. There's usually a Darth Vader behind me somewhere, lightsabers everywhere. I love Star Wars. Because of that love of Star Wars, I typically don't recommend Star Wars stuff, because Star Wars is an easy sell for someone like me. You know, give me some stormtroopers throwing a lightsaber, I'm probably happy. But Thrawn has always been, I've always had a soft spot for Thrawn in the previous extended universe, but now that we're in this Disney version, this new extended universe, a pre-crisis extended universe, if you will, we've got all the Filoni stuff going on. And Filoni really cut his teeth doing the animated stuff. And I love the Clone Wars, but I really love Rebels. I think Rebels is like top tier Star Wars animated material. And Thrawn plays a big role in that. He brings Thrawn in. Timothy Zahn, one of the creators of Thrawn, did those original novels, has kind of redone Thrawn for the new extended universe. And his inspiration for these comics are now coming through. Now, these are quite literally his books done in the comic form. It's 100% an adaptation. So if you've read the novels like I have, there's not going to be a whole lot here that's new to you. But the last time they did this, I really enjoyed it. I think Thrawn is a really interesting and good character for the Star Wars universe. And he adds a dynamic that's just not seen in the movies that much. So I love Thrawn. I think he's a great character. I think for even lapsed Star Wars fans to read these Thrawn, I would say go back and read Thrawn novels. But if you're not a novel guy, you don't really like reading books, we're adapting to comics, and that's just as good. So pick up this and check it out. I think you will really enjoy it. I know I will. After that, we've got Titans Beast World #5. This is written by Tom Taylor with art by Ivan Reis. I believe we did Beast World #4 on this series, and so I won't spend a ton of time. Really loving Beast World. It's a really cool concept. They've taken it in really cool directions. I think Tom Taylor's writing a pretty fantastic event story here. We're getting, if you can tell by the cover, Dr. Hate is becoming more and more of a presence in all this. We had this big reveal in the last issue, this big moment that got me really excited. And what's interesting here is I'm not a Titans guy. Like, I don't really care for the Titans. I don't read a whole lot of Teen Titans books. Honestly, the last Teen Titans book I read a lot of was when Damian took over, because I'm more of a Damian guy, because Damian Wayne was coming up when I was younger. And that's kind of the Robin I grew to love throughout my early adulthood. So the classic Titans team with Garth and Nightwing and all these characters, I don't have an affinity for, but fuck did Tom Taylor make me care about what happened in the last issue? And I'm not going to spoil it, but it's pretty huge. And for me to have an emotional reaction to it is a big deal because, as I said 50 times, I'm not a Titans guy. So Titans Beast World has been really good. I would say, even if you're not a event person or you have event fatigue or something like that, I would say check this one out. I think there's something different. There's a little bit of a through line from the previous event, and I think this issue will be a turning point for that because honestly, Dr. Hate is is part of the previous event. So how he's used here and what happens here is kind of a big deal. So we'll find out how much that ties in, how friendly it is to people that maybe didn't read Night Terrors, but yeah, loving the series. After that, I've got the Ghost Machine one shot number 1. This is written by Geoff Johns with art by, I'm sorry, there are multiple writers on this. It's written by Geoff Johns, Peter Tomasi, Brad Meltzer, Lamont Magee, Maytal Zchut, with art by Francis Manapul, Ivan Reis, Bryan, Hitch, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Peter Snejbjerg. I think I said that right, but that's less ours. Ghost Machine one shot. So, I mean, we've talked about, I forget what Geoff Johns was calling this prior, but Geoff Johns had his universe he was doing over at Image, and it started with Geiger, and we got the G.I. Robot book, and then we got the Geiger Zero book, which honestly a bit of a letdown. I didn't think we needed a Geiger origin after we just got a mini series that kind of included Geiger's origins, but it did set up the next Geiger story, which I will be interested to get into because I'm a big proponent of not every character deserves an ongoing. Not every character can live through multiple stories. Sometimes a character just has a story and we move on from it. And I'm hesitant to say Geiger's one of them, but I am not convinced that he isn't. That aside, I'm really excited for some of the other Geoff Johns Ghost Machine stuff. I mean, I think Red Coats looks really cool, and Hyde Street looks interesting. There's a bunch of cool stuff. We'll even throw that to the side because I do think that everything that he's doing at Image has been a renaissance to his career. He was kind of, in my humble opinion, getting a little lackluster over at DC, and even the JSA book he's doing now, enjoying it, but I definitely see it as a setup for somebody else to take over, and I think that's very apparent. But what's interesting here is we got other writers. Some I'm not so familiar with. Some we're all very familiar with. Peter J. Tomasi is a guy who I'm very hit or miss with. I love his Super Sons. And I even went back. I've been cataloging a lot of my comics and went back to my New 52 stuff. And I bought a lot of Tomasi stuff that I really enjoyed. And I think he's a good writer. But I have picked up some independent stuff that I've been not so hot on. So he, in that space, he still has some room he still has to prove something to me as a writer in that. But that aside, I'm looking forward to giving him a chance, especially in a one shot like this. Like, show me what you got and show me that I should jump on board. We'll even throw those aside. The big news here to me is Brad Meltzer's on this book. Brad Meltzer, for anyone who doesn't know, is a longtime novelist. He did these really great children's books. Who Am I? Or I Am series. It was the I Am series that are really good. But he also did Identity Crisis, and he has an affinity for comics. And Identity Crisis did do some things, small, subtle things, but did do some things that changed comics forever. So I want to know what he's got. I want to know why he's teamed up here and what he feels like a guy to me that doesn't make a decision like this lightly. He could easily, and I say this in terms of like marketing it and selling it. I know writing a novel is tough, but he could easily just write another novel, probably make a lot of money off of it and move on. He's done it his entire life, his entire career, and I'm sure he's a very wealthy man because of it, because he's a very talented man as well. So for him to say, I'm going to team up with these dudes over in comics world, some of which that he worked with over at DC when he was working with them, so there's some familiarity there. But to say that his next project's a comic says to me he has something he feels is right for comics, that he's not just jumping on a bandwagon, because he's a guy that could just write a novel and probably get it picked up. I mean, he's well known enough. He's been around. I know he's worked on TV and movies in the past. He's done a lot of stuff. So this doesn't feel like a bandwagon thing where he's like, oh, if I just make this comic and become a movie. Like, he doesn't need that. So I'm very, very intrigued on what he has. And this will probably be, actually, I'm just going to say it here now, it is my top book of the week for that reason alone. And you know, I'm really looking forward to Red Coat too. I think that book's gonna be a lot of fun. So a lot of cool stuff here. Lots and lots of cool stuff. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, comment down below on this YouTube. Smash that like button, as they say. And if you want to follow me further, go over to the Twitter machine or any of your social media networks. Find me at Fortress Chris. I'm probably there. At the very least, promoting what we're doing here. But if you want to follow me, I post the most on Twitter. So that's a great place to go. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you here next time.